Hey guys, it's Hardy here to do the Shadowlands PvE Castle Nathria guide. Today we're going to be looking at Balanced Druid and going over the changes from BFA into Shadowlands, as well as talents, stats, trinkets, conduits, covenants, rotation, all that you want to take into Castle Nathria, which does come out in just a few days for normal and heroic, and then the following week for mythic. So first let's touch on the changes that happened from BFA to Shadowlands for Balanced Druid. The biggest ones being eclipses. So they're no longer. Let's see if I can just find a thing that I can. You guys can just look at when I talk about it. So they're no longer just empowerments like they were in BFA, where you would pretty much just cast Wrath or Starfire, and it would empower the other and increase their damage and reduce their cast times and do all that stuff. Now it's back to how it was before Legion, where you'd go into windows, either a solar window or a lunar window, where it empowers the corresponding ability, and as you can see, it lasts 15 seconds for each window, and in order to get into the eclipses you need to cast the opposite spell. So for example, if I want to get into a lunar eclipse, I want to cast 2 Wraths, which is solar. So you see I cast 2 Wraths and I'm in a lunar eclipse, which increases the critical strike chance and also reduces the cast time. And this also, all of this eclipse stuff is affecting the mastery, which solar eclipse increases nature spell damage by 25%, which is like Starfall, and lunar eclipse increases arcane spell damage by 25%, which is Star Surge. So this is going to, between our mastery and between the new way that eclipses now work again, the biggest thing for Balanced Druid is going to be making sure you're in any kind of eclipse, whether it be lunar or solar, in a fight for as long as possible. So the time that you're spent out of eclipses at all is wasted damage. So, and this also means that on like single target or even Mythic Plus, you want to make sure that you're not using your Star Surges or your Star Falls unless you're in an eclipse. So it's that's really the biggest thing to take away. Is the most important thing about playing Balanced Druid right now is that you're always in an eclipse for for as long of the fight as you can. So that's pretty much it. They also like unprune some abilities, like Balance has Ursul's Vortex. They have Typhoon baseline. Talents, we have like Heart of the Wild again, which increases whatever affinity you have. Soul of the Forest is new. Solstice is new. The idea of Solstice isn't really that different, but the talent itself is new. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the big changes. So with that being said, we can go into talents and what talents I advise that you should take going into Castle Nathria for all the fights. The nice thing about Balance is that, well, actually, I don't. This might be like a negative to some people, but you're gonna be pretty much running a similar talent build for the entire raid. As opposed to like a Mythic Plus build. So the talent build that I currently have, which is Nature's Balance, Wild Charge, Restoration Affinity, Heart of the Wild, Star Lord, Stellar Flare, and Solstice, that's gonna be like your run-of-the-mill raid build. You know, for fights like Shriekwing, Huntsman Ultimore, Artificer, Hungry Destroyer, Council of Blood, probably, definitely Sledge Fist, and then maybe Sire Nathrius. Because this is like your single target or like 2 target build where there's not really a ton of cleave or adds, but you're still mostly a single target like priority damage like centric build, but there could be like an add or so that spawns, and you can still deal with it with this talent set. Now if we're looking at like a Mythic Plus talent set or like a super like AoE intensive fight in the raid like Sun King Salvation or Stone Legion Generals, that's pretty much it for the raid. But like especially Mythic Plus, you're gonna want to take Soul of the Forest over Star Lord. This is gonna make it so your Eclipse increases Wrath's astral power generation by 50% and increases Starfire's area effect damage by 150%. So that's the biggest thing. That second part is the area effect damage. It's gonna make it huge for just packs. It makes it at this point in the expansion where even if you are in a solar eclipse, you still want to hit Lunar Strike if there's 3 or more targets. So this talent's really, really important for that. And then also for Mythic Plus, instead of Stellar Flare, which is just a single target dot. It has a cast time and it gives you extra power. You're going to want to take Stellar Drift, which increases Starfall's duration by 2 seconds, and it's damaged by 15%, and allows you to cast while moving while it's active. So obviously, the duration and damage increase is going to be big for AoE. But what I really love about this talent is the back half of it, where it allows you to cast while moving. It's huge. It's so important for Mythic Plus. Like if a tank is, dragging mobs away and maybe doing a bigger pull, and you started planting already and casting, you can sort of adjust for that. Or obviously, if there's mechanics that you need to step out for, you can keep casting. It's huge. So this is the talent build that I would run for Mythic Plus, or like I said, super AoE intensive fights like Sun King, Salvation, and Stone Legion Journals. That's pretty much it for talents. I think that I got pretty much all that covered. Oh, these 3 rows, 25, 30, and 35, are all preference. The reason why I like Wild Charge is because it's like a disengage for Boomy. I can show you real quick. Let me just go back to Secretary build. So if I'm in Moon King form, it becomes a disengage, kind of like a hunter. It's really nice. In human form, it's like you jump to your target. Bear form, it's like a little charge. Calf form, it's like a charge and interrupt. Actually, no, it's not. Calf form is just a jump. Yeah, it's just like a shadow step kind of. And yeah, the disengage is really nice for increasing movement without having to like go into calf form. And then Heart of the Wild and Restoration Infinity, I think, is a great combo, especially for if you're progging Mythic. If there's a super healing intensive fight, and you can help your healers out if you don't need to be doing damage in a specific window, you can pop Heart of the Wild and just put rejuves on everybody. It's really, really good, and it's a great way to help your raid out. So yeah, that's pretty much it for talents, I think. Touching quick on Covenants, Soulbinds, and Conduits. As you can see, I am Night Fae. Similar to Warlock, Affliction Warlock, the race between Night Fae and Kyrian is super close, and in the end, it kind of just comes down to preference and what specific content you're going to be doing. Kyrian is best for Mythic Plus, no doubt, and it is also definitely good for raid. Like, don't get me wrong, it's really good. However, there's been like some problems with it, because if you don't know the Kyrian ability, you pretty much like link to somebody, and when you use the ability, it's on a 1 minute cooldown. It makes it so 20% of your damage becomes their damage, and 20% of their damage becomes your damage. So what you want to do if you are Kyrian is you want to try to link with a bursty DPS class that you know is going to do a lot in a 1 minute window. It's like I think it's like 10 seconds that it actually lasts. So like your marksmanship hunters, your fire mages, anything that's super bursty, you want to link with them. But I just found it like a really annoying spell to use. Also, the soulbind they use is Pelagos, because the other two are trash, and Pelagos is really good. However, I don't like being pigeonholed into just one soulbind. Like if they nerfed or tuned to Pelagos in some way, you're kind of screwed as a Kyrian. However, for Night Fae, we have Naya, which is really good, and then we also have Dreamweaver, which gets the second potency conduit slot before anybody else in any covenant. So that makes her really good. And even Corian is not bad at all. It's like actually a pretty good ability. So I like the versatility that Night Fae has. It's also definitely the best priority target damage spell, Convoke the Spirits, where you just like sort of erupt into a random 16 Druid abilities. You'll find that a lot of them when you're in Boomy are Star Surges. You can drop full moons on them, which is, if it's like AoE pack, it does so much damage. It's huge. The only annoying thing is that it can throw out like rejuves and regrows, so that, I mean, it's a little bit of RNG for sure, but it's definitely my favorite ability, and it's in my opinion the best for the raid. As well as, I mean, you can't go wrong with Soul Shape. I mean, even though we are Druids and they're arguably the best movement sort of able class, it's still nice to have a dash along with the rest of the stuff that you have. So yeah, that's the covenant that I chose and the reason why I chose it. But again, Kyrian is a very, very, very close option, so it's sort of just preference to that point. Maldraxxus and Venthyr are pretty much non-options at this point if you want to min-max as a Boomy. So that's if you want to min-max. If you don't care, then obviously do whatever you want. For the soulbind that I'm currently using is Naya. This is because of Grove Invigoration. Pretty much means that you get a ton of mastery, which is our best stat at the moment. Whenever you use your cooldown, complete the spirits every 2 minutes, as well as you just get stacks randomly, which is just pretty much a constant amount of free mastery in a fight. Really, really good ability, obviously. And then there's a chance that in the second week of Mythic, when we do get the second potency conduit slot for Dreamweaver, that we might end up switching to this, but we'll just see when that happens and what the sims are looking like. If I had to make a prediction now, I'd be saying that we'll be using Naya pretty much the entire tier. But once we do get this ability, Field of Blossoms, it's definitely better than this poison thing that Naya has. So maybe by the time we finish out the complete tree, we'll use Dreamweaver. We'll see then, because this first ability doesn't even do damage. It's just like a lifesaver thing. So kind of useless, but the slot is huge, and this last ability is huge. So we'll see then. But as of right now, and for the next long while, I think most balance shooters will be playing Naya. As far as conduits go, if you're Night Fae, the best conduit is Conflicts of Elements. While channeling Conflict of Spirits, your damage and healing are increased by whatever amount the item level of your conduit is. I'm currently not using it right now because, as you can see, it's a pretty low item level. It's just like the base that you get it when you join the Covenant. I've gotten pretty unlucky out of my calling caches, so I haven't gotten an upgraded version of it. So I'm currently using the duration of CA is increased by 6.5 seconds just because it's like the highest conduit that I have, and it's definitely better than Stellar Inspiration. So, but yeah, if you're playing Night Fae, this is going to be your best bet, assuming that it is a decent item level. If not, you can always sim it just to see. That's what I did. And then if you ever, by the time we get to being able to wear 2 conduit slots, the second best after that is Fury of the Skies. Moonfire increases your arcane damage to the target, and Sunfire increases your nature damage to the target by whatever percent. This is obviously good because it's pretty much just like a permanent increase to your Star Surge damage and Starfall damage. So, assuming you have your Dawson target and all that. So, obviously, it's really, really good. It's just not better than Conflicts of Elements if you're a Night Fae. If you're not Night Fae, if you're like Kyrian, for example, Fury of the Skies is going to be your best bet. But yeah, always just sim because item levels can affect which conduit is best, as you can clearly see, because I'm using this. And this conduit really isn't even that great when you sim it, but since it is one of the highest ones I have, it is currently the best for me. I think that's it for Covenants, Conduits, and Soulbinds. We can quickly touch on stats. So currently, the way that stats go for Boomy is Mastery is King, followed pretty closely by Haste, and then followed after that by Verse, and then the last is Crit. So Mastery, Haste, Verse, Crit. This is obviously going to affect what type of ring enchants you have. As you can see, I currently have a Haste ring enchants because I don't have a Haste on a lot of my gear. I have a lot of Mastery, but not a lot of Haste. So my sim just told me to put Haste on. I'm assuming just to try to balance out those ratios. As far as a weapon enchant goes, I'm currently using Celestial Guidance just because it's cheap and affordable. But our best enchant is going to be Sinful Revelation, which I'm not using it right now because it's currently 20,000 gold per enchant. And I'm just waiting for that to go down a little bit because I know it will when people are actually raiding and care about their damage. So I'll probably be buying that in the next day or two. But yeah, Sinful Revelation is best if you don't have a ton of gold, and Celestial Guidance is a close second. So don't feel bad about going that if you can't afford it. Chest enchant, I'm currently using Eternal Insight. It basically increases your int by 20, and then also has a chance to do damage to your target. It currently sims the highest, at least for me. And it's not that expensive, so I definitely recommend doing this. And then for my wrist enchant, I currently have on the 10 intellect enchant because I couldn't even find a 15 intellect enchant on the auction house. I think people are buying them up too quick, and because you need the purple crystals to make them, and those are super expensive right now. So the way to go for that is obviously the 15 intellect enchant, but if again you're low on money, on gold, then a plus 10 intellect is totally fine. Same goes for gems and all that. Just sort of see what your highest stat weight is, and then whatever's highest is a good gem / ring enchant. So That's all pretty easy. But there's a very small chance they'll be using anything besides haste or mastery for your enchant. So that's a good rule of thumb. If you don't like simming or you don't know how to sim, slap on haste or mastery for your gems and enchants, and you'll be just fine as a Boomy right now. That's pretty much it for stats and enchants and all that stuff. Quickly touching on trinkets, going into the raid. I got very unlucky in my Mythic Zeros, as you can see. So I bought a Dark Moon deck off the auction house. It was only a few thousand gold. It doesn't sim that high for Boomy, but it does have a lot of intellect, and it doesn't have a bad effect. It just increases their chance to be critically hit, which, isn't terrible. Especially in our burst window. So I picked that up, and then I also got the ooze. This isn't bad. It's definitely very underwhelming, but again, it has intellect on it. That's all I care about for right now. But this is definitely not a great long-term trinket. If you're looking for great long-term trinkets, our two best are going to be, like going into the raid, are going to be this one. I'll put it on music. The inscrutable quantum device off of dealer Zyxa, and the other side. This is an intellect trinket that has a use that is on a 3-minute cooldown, and I have a feeling that this sims a lot higher than it actually probably performs in raid, because the problem with this trinket is that it does like 5 things. It like tries to perform 5 actions, and if it can't perform, it's anywhere from like 3 to 5, I forget. But if it can't perform them all, then it just gives you a ton of your highest stats. So in my case, it would be a ton of mastery, which is obviously amazing for a balanced druid. But in order to get to that point of giving you the stats, it tries to like heal you if you're under 20% health. If it can't do that, then it'll like give your healer mana if your healer's mana is under 20% mana. If it can't do that, and the boss is in execute, then it'll do execute damage, which doesn't sound bad. But if it can't do that, that might be it actually. But there might be more. But the idea is like it does a bunch of things, and if it can't do any of them, it's like, here, have a bunch of mastery for like 15 or 20 seconds, which is awesome. But I think on sims, it's assuming that it just gives you the mastery no matter what, but that might not be the case in a raid situation. So but this trinket either way is really good. And then for the other trinkets, I believe the Soul Letting Ruby off of Koltharak and Theater of Pain also has intellect on it, and then it pretty much just does it like heals you when you press it. It's on a 2-minute cooldown, and then it gives you a ton of crit for 16 seconds. And even though crit is our worst stat pretty much right now, having a ton of it in a big, like, for almost the entirety of your cooldown is huge. I mean, no matter what. So this trinket is definitely one of the best right now, sim wise, for Boomy. So if you were able to get this going into the raid, then you're sitting pretty. If not, I do recommend farming this when Mythic Plus is out next week, so you have it for Mythic Week, because it is a really, really good trinket. I think that's it for trinkets. I think that's pretty much it for everything. I think I'm just going to touch on rotation real quick and talk about the opener. So like I was talking about in the beginning of the video, the rotation is pretty simple. You just maintain dots, and you make sure that you're always in an eclipse, and whatever eclipse you're in, you're hitting that ability. If you're in a solar eclipse, you're spamming Wrath. If you're in a lunar eclipse, you're spamming Starfire on single target. The biggest things to think about are, you don't want to cap. Obviously, you don't want to cap Astral Power. That's pretty simple. So if you're about to cap, you want to Star Surge. But what your Star Surge does nowadays is that it, as you can see, it empowers the damage bonus of any active eclipse for its duration. I think it's 3% or so. Actually, let me check. I can check real quick. It's like 3% or so per Star Surge. So right now we can see critical strike damage increases to 20%. So it's 6%, at least for lunar. It's 6%. So that pretty much means that it's really important that you dump all your Star Surges in the beginning of an eclipse, so that the rest of your eclipse can be empowered to at its max ability according to how much Astral Power that you had. That might sound confusing, but it's really not at all. So what an opener is going to look like is, you're going to open with 2 rats, because it does have a pretty slow travel time, so you can open with 2 rats, and then immediately place your dots, so Moonfire into Sunfire into Stellar Flare, and then you're going to want a CA, which activates both of your eclipses, and then you're going to be around 85 to 90 Astral Power at that point, so you want to go into 2 Star Surges so that you just empty out a little bit of your Astral Power so you don't cap. When you use Convoke the Spirits, which is right after that, Convoke the Spirits is going to give you a good amount of Astral Power. It might even cap you, depending on how what kind of abilities you cast. And then immediately you want to, after that, dump all of your Star Surges and then go straight into a Wrath spam. And then, yeah, after that it's just maintain dots and just trying to be in Eclipses for as long as possible. So I'll quickly do the opener, and then you can slow it down if you want, if you really want to go into detail into what happens. So, like I said, I'm going to do a double Wrath into dots. You would have lost and all that, obviously. Into CA, into 2 Star Surges, into Convoke. And then see, I'm capping on Astral Power, so I'm going to dump everything. And then I'm just going to spam Wrath. I should use my trinket, but obviously any kind of trinket that you have. And then you want to refresh dots as close to the pandemic window as possible. So like as you can see, my eclipses are going to end in like 3 seconds, and I'm pretty close to capping. But I want to go into my next eclipse with as much Astral Power as possible without capping, so that I can dump in the beginning. See how I just got into eclipse and I just dumped all my Astral Power pretty much. So now the rest of my wraths are going to be doing 38% increased damage. So that's huge. As you can see, the eclipse is about to end again. So I'm going to try and get as many as I can, and then we're now on a lunar. I'm going to dump my Star Surges and then spam Starfire. Refresh dots. And then yeah, I mean it's really as simple as that. It's a really easy rotation. Maintain dots, sitting in eclipses for as long as possible, and really being efficient in those eclipses with your Star Surges. And then yeah, I don't really think I need to do. I think you guys get the point. Remember, if you want to get better at any rotation of any class in this game, sitting at a target dummy for 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, an hour, like however much free time you have, is going to greatly increase due to, muscle memory being a giant portion of how well you're gonna do. And yeah, I think that's all I gotta talk about with Balance Druid. If I missed anything, or if you have any specific questions about anything, feel free to message me in the comments below, or in game. I'm on a lot. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Balance Druid is in a really good spot right now, and it's also really fun. So to all my Boomy mains out there, or anyone that's going to play Boomy, you're gonna enjoy it. I know you will, and you're gonna be pumping. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Have a great day, guys. Peace.